Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Cahill with the Emerson Automation Experts blog and podcast, and I'm really fortunate to be joined today by Duncan Schleiss. If you hadn't heard the news already, he's a 2025 recipient of Control's Process Automation Hall of Fame. Thanks for joining us today, Duncan.
Well, my pleasure, Jim. That came as a bit of a surprise to me and a great honor. And I'm reflecting back on that with all the people that I stand shoulder to shoulder with, the previous folk that have won this award.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of people that have won it. Legendary people like Greg Shinsky and Greg McMillan and Bud Kais and all. In fact, I was going and doing some research. Emerson has been well represented over the year. I need to look at my notes. There's been quite a few. Greg McMillan, Bud Kais, Terry Blevins, Hans Baumann, Willie Voisinitz, John Barra, Mark Nixon, Vern Heath, Marty Zielinski, and Marcus Peluso before you, which cover everything: valves, measurement devices, advanced control, everything else in there. So I guess my first question is, what does that mean to you to be among such luminaries?
Well, those are incredible names. And, as you rattle off those names and others that I've seen outside of Emerson, I can see, well, that person did this, that one did that, that one did that. Really amazing things. Some of them deeply technical, right? Others of them, like John Barrett, with steering the whole community, if you will, the whole automation community. I mean, myself, I've been doing mostly my job, right? Granted, breaking the mold here and there and refusing to follow the norm or what is typical, because I tend to live on the fringes of the norm, if you will. As we all know, sometimes gets me into trouble, right? But what's next is always top of mind to me, right? It must be something better.
Yeah, I remember you telling me early on when I joined your merry adventure in DeltaV, it was all about being persistent and consistent. And I think you've really personified that over the years. And I think this is a recognition of all that work that went into it. Now I know you're from South Africa, got your chemical engineering degree in Durban. Then you came to the U.S., master's at LSU, great place there. So what got you into our world of process automation from all that background?
So it was interesting. Always liked my science leaning, if you will, my math to the background, chemistry. Thermodynamics was a tough course, but even that one as well. And what people don't know is in between all of that, I worked in a refinery in South Africa. And that was a particularly dangerous place to work. Right? I mean, I've been to refineries in North America and Europe, but none of them compare with the dangers of the refinery that I worked in South Africa. So when I worked there, I declared when I left there, I left for other reasons to get my master's. But I said, I am not going back into that plant, not ever again. And that somehow extended into other plants. So I said, well, how do I make my degree work for me? And I'm not working in a plant environment, was kind of where I landed. So I respect the heck out of our customers that are working in those plant environments. And I have never seen anything like what I left in South Africa, which was a deeply dangerous plant. We were cracking hydrocarbons that were like tar, full of sulfur. The whole thing was very dangerous. I worked in the HF plant for a while, and for those engineers out there, that's not a good place either, right? So, that's not where you want to cut your teeth. So I said, where next? And an opportunity arose in process control as a vendor, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm similar. I started offshore oil and gas production, which can be a little bit dangerous.
But hairy.
And then coming on the other side. So like you, I respect the heck out of our customers that are doing that job day in and day out. Now, I've known you way more than 30 years. It's hard to even admit it's been that long. But when I first met you, it was even before DeltaV came on the scene. It was with Provox, and you were like consulting with expert systems. So you're even in the early 90s innovating then. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into that?
Yeah, I think I fell into that by accident. I've always had a bit of a geeky bent to me, right? I was a project manager for a while, but I always liked to keep my hands dabbling in geekdom, right? And when I was hired into Emerson, at the time it was Fisher, I was the MES consultant, and nobody knew what I was supposed to do, including myself. And an opportunity came along, customer had a problem in the pharmaceutical world that we needed some kind of AI engine. The AI engine back in those days, the closest thing that we found to do this job was a product called G2. G2 was made by Jensen Company out of Boston, right? And I started to get into rules-based AI back in the day, which is very exciting. We really didn't really understand what we were doing, but we had a mission. And that determinism that you speak about, Jim, I got plenty of that, right? So we hammered through that, and it went really well. Eventually became a spinoff out of that company as a standalone startup, right? So it's an interesting little background there. And then, of course, from there, Emerson decided we needed something to break the mold in the DCS game. And they said, who better than this crazy guy over here, full of passion and want to change the world all the time? And I was picked into that community.
Yeah, and I remember when you were picked, you tapped a certain number of other marketers on the shoulder, and I was lucky enough to be one of them. And we went off to the Hawk site. In fact, I'm wearing my Hawk shirt, 30 years in the making, to go over that on that adventure. And I think it was wanting to join that innovative entrepreneurial spirit of all that. So can you tell our listeners here some of the bold decisions we had to make in the early days of DeltaV to be innovative about it?
Well, sure, Jim. Given that you're wearing this Hawk shirt, which is quite remarkable, it's 30 years. Who keeps a piece of clothing for 30 years other than Jim Cale? But mine lasts like 2 weeks and I got paint on them or something like that, right? But okay, that aside, naming our product, our new DCS product, to name it DeltaV. You did all of this legwork. And I remember we had the hardware done, we had the software done, but we didn't have a product name. And we didn't have the pricing and licensing squared away, right? And I remember like GPS coordinates aware, I was standing and sweating to get the name made, right? If you will. Naming DeltaV was super hard. But I'm preaching to the choir because you lived through this.
Gray hair shows.
Yeah, that was really hard. Technology choices were extremely difficult. We didn't have the internet to do research. We were still going to shows and getting magazines. I'd go to Intercom or the IT geeky shows every year to see what trends were there. Because you couldn't go to the internet because it didn't exist. So we made very bold decisions that were very scary. And we didn't look back. Once we made the decision, we moved on, and thankfully, knock on wood, we got almost all of them right? In fact, back then, we got them all right, everyone, right? That was maybe a little bit of luck in there, but, we made them and moved.
Yeah, I think just the speed at which we were moving at and making those big decisions was amazing. But also we had some fun. Like I recall one time, we'd make some tough decisions over margaritas on Friday over at Place Trudy's. And like one of the fun decisions was back in the day when the networks were simpler, and we saw someone coming in from one of our competitors, we would redirect them to the careers section instead of looking at our data sheets. So, we had fun, but also made those big decisions. So what are some of your most significant memories from getting DeltaV built and established in the market?
Well, there's the building decisions that we had to make, the technologies that we picked that were game changers back then. We'll cover that a little bit later. But once we had the product and we started small, we learned actually from one of our competitors who introduced a control system that fell over. They tried to go too big, too fast, and it wasn't cooked. So we learned from that lesson, and we started off with DeltaV as a small system that we knew worked with certain boundary conditions. We introduced it as a 500 I/O system. That's tiny, but we got tiny to work. And then we made tiny times 2 and tiny times 3 and tiny times 4. And now we can do a system of any size. And that was a carefully thought through plan, right? And then we also said, which markets are we going to address? Because we didn't want to go into the most complicated market at day one. So we had this very pragmatic viewpoint of our rollout strategy, if you will. Just thinking about, we're going to go here, we'll do this, and we'll do this in this stage. And then down this path over here was like, and where are we going to do it? Where also meant industry-wise and also proximity-wise. We couldn't go into the Asia and start to run systems there. We had to be nearby for that fast support thing. So I'd say on the execution side, we were very careful, very pragmatic, and pulled it off reasonably perfectly. I mean, nothing's perfect, right? But the plan, we put it in place and we executed it. Huh?
Yeah, I had a friend working for one of the competitors. When he first showed it at an ISA show, he came up and said, "That's a toy, isn't it?" And it wasn't, but 2 years later, we had more than 10x the size of it and everything else. So it was an amazing journey there. What were some of those technology decisions, that we made that were a gamble at the time?
Well, the first one was picking the operating system. At the time, the operating system for PCs today, right, were all Unix boxes. Everybody was doing Unix. Unix was a thing of the day because we'd come from VMS to Unix. And we decided this is a bad idea. We decided to go to PCs. And the only PC you could buy in those days was from HP or IBM. And IBM shipped with that operating system that nobody remembers anymore called OS2. And OS2 really worked. And we picked, instead of OS2, we picked Windows, which didn't work. So we had to, through the looking glass carefully, we were connected to that new upstart company called Microsoft. We decided to go with their new operating system that wasn't released yet, wasn't even cooked yet, called NT. NT got a little name in the market called Nice Try, right? But they figured it out. They got it sorted out, and we gambled back then. It was a huge gamble for us. Let's go with them. And then on to pick Dell boxes. Run your DCS on a non-proprietary boxes. Crazy. And then another one would be on picking Ethernet for process control. And one of our vendors said, it can't do it. I said, I think it will. And the communication card is $85. Today, it's a $2 chip. We had no choice. You had to go there and make it work. And so you have these naysayers. We picked that. I remember the GPS coordinates of where I was standing when we made that decision. 2 of us made that decision. That was scary. And we didn't pick, conventional wisdom was coax cable Ethernet. And we went with 10 base T, the Cat5. Wow. It was crazy talk back then. Right? And then I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we went with, if you will, last but not least, our system needed to communicate to the world. And there was no real way to do it. We had something amazing on ProBox called CHIP, Computer Highway Interface Program. We worked with Microsoft and a couple of others to massage that and donate that technology to the world. Last but not least, at that time, we had a competition for the world buses. They had World Fit going on there, and Honeywell had Honeywell DE and Yokogawa Brain, and we had Heart. And we said, we're going to make this Heart thing work, and we're going to donate that to the world too, right? And donating technology to the world was foreign to Emerson and foreign to our industry. And here we had 2 major innovations that became international standards from those early days of Hawk, with our Hawk program. Right. So I'm very excited about changing the game. And I said, if for that award, people say, what's that award about? But those kind of things. We're changing, not our business, of course our business, but the rest of the world too. We really made a significant dent in the universe.
Yeah, it was kind of doing open source before open source was cool by donating away. So that was an amazing, those picks, as not dangerous, but as risky as they were.
another small thing, Jim. We had, I'm sure you remember because you were doing this yourself. We posted all of our data sheets on the internet. As the internet was unfolding, you and I wrote the first Emerson website in Notepad. I remember this the night before the launch, and we posted all our data sheets on the internet, and that was unheard of. We had people calling and saying, "Do you understand our competitors can read these?" I said, "Yes, that's okay." So we changed that world as well.
Well, they could read them till we redirected them to the careers section of our website. So that was a good way around it. Let's see. So, it's been a journey over 30 years. What are some of those top milestones that you recall as DeltaV advanced?
Well, the milestones, I remember the first big one for me was we had $1 million a month, which was so aspirational. We started at $0 a month. In fact, we were hemorrhaging cash on the development, and all of a sudden we had $1 million a month. And I remember just shutting everything down and said, "This is time for a party," right? And I'm good at the celebration side, as you know, so we had to go celebrate that, right? Then we had aspirations to be number one in batch. The number one in batch meant the top 20 pharmaceutical customers were going to use DeltaV. That was a personal mission that I went on, speaking to all of these life sciences customers, and I remember checking that box, right? Another party, that was one there. Then a little bit of luck happened. I remember another party. These are all parties. You can see the theme over here. This one over here was one of our competitors, our number one competitor in the industry, which was Moore Apex, got acquired by a company that killed them. So our number one competitor overnight disappeared. Sometimes a little bit of luck just has to shine your way, and we had luck. We had plenty of luck. And all of a sudden I said, "Okay, they're gone. It's finished. Game over." And it truly was game over. So that's another milestone that was there. Another milestone would be, I remember this when we had DeltaV's pretty much full-fledged and everything else. I said, "Okay, we've arrived. We're now on the map. We're in competitive bidding and that sort of thing." And we could have rested on our laurels, but we didn't. We stayed a little frosty and said, "What's next? How do we break the mold again?" In 2011, we introduced electronic marshaling. That's a total game changer, right? That was one of those things that you said, it's going to be hard. It will even be a little bit more expensive, but it will save our customers a lot of money. It'll be a high availability solution. Everything smelt right. And we plowed into that and delivered that. And I remember working with ExxonMobil. It was just so much fun. It was so innovative. And when we launched it at sales event, I remember the buzz that it made because everybody knew we had a game changer. So it's that kind of continuous game changer that's why I'm still working and having fun doing that, right? That's what's next. Always asking, what's next? And staying frosty, because if you sit on your laurels, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah. There was one other milestone that popped in my mind. I remember when one of our competitors, they were doing their earnings report, and the CEO got up there and said, "That other company, they're just all marketing." And we were just a small band of guerrilla marketers in there. To have a CEO of a major corporation complaining about our marketing, that was a great day.
I remember that. Just good marketing. Yeah, that also fuels our fires. Like, we'll show you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So what motivates you to, press forward the way you seem to doing that, year after year?
Well, there's always the next big gig around the corner. So you're looking for, what's next. That's my standard MO. There's got to be a better way, right? And even editing this video, Jim, you're using AI tools to do that, right? And I built a little AI tool inside for us, a channel to finance it quicker and faster. And the world of AI is toyland for somebody like myself, right? It's like, where do you start? They're in every aspect in life, from Vivino, if you will, right, to Google recognize thing on my phone. I recognize leaves and find out what plants are in my garden. It just keeps going. Waymo is driving me to the airport tomorrow with nobody in the front seat. I said, it's astounding. So how can you stop that spirit of innovation when things are happening so fast around us? So for us as a leading automation supplier. We're still in toyland here. This is we're going to make some radical changes in our next couple of years. We're going to change the industry yet again. I'm hoping to be around, right? I'll certainly be cheering the team on if I'm not leading it.
Yeah, and I guess that leads into my final question for you. So if you pull out your crystal ball and look at it, what are some of these big changes we're likely to see in the coming years?
Well, we don't have enough time to really go through some of them, but I'll tease you with one of them, right? So I had a little challenge. I needed to write a little script on my PC to make a backup. Now, I wanted my own backup over here on my USB stick. So I wrote the program. Given my gray hair, no hair department, I wrote it in DOS. And something wasn't working, so I asked my young buck to help me debug this. And he says, well, what is that? I said, it's DOS. He says, yeah, what is that? I said, it runs on your PC. He didn't know. So he says, why don't you run in Python? So over the weekend, I wrote in Python. Now, I had a little help from Gemini and ChatGPT on the side, but I did it, and it works extremely well, exceptionally well. So now I can speak to it and tell it, go write this code for me. And I don't really have to read the code. I was just going to go and do a factory acceptance test with this code. So the next gen is, how will that impact our control systems? We'll speak into the mic and everything else, and out the other side will come a fully configured system. It's inevitable, right? I wouldn't say it will work all the time. You still need a human in there to do a factory acceptance test or a site acceptance test. But that whole world is going to change. And I want to do state-based control. And how do you configure that? I said, configure? You still configure? We speak into the mic, and out it comes on the other side, right? And so on. That just keeps on going, right? So there are endless opportunities for us to go and innovate with the new tools that are upon us.
Yeah, it's just amazing how quickly the world is changing. And just we've got to bring it in as we have over the past 3 decades into DeltaV for that. Well, Duncan, congratulations again on joining the luminaries in the Process Automation Hall of Fame. And personally, it's been a heck of a ride working with you all these years.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Right. I would just leave a little last note there. I've worked with so many amazing people that have helped me in my career, yourself included, Jim, right? And our cameraman, for that matter, as well. So this notion that I'm kind of like a flag bearer for a lot of people here. And this is to every part of the world with our sales force, the people that look after our systems and our customs when they're installed. I look at that and say, we have an incredible engine, right? And I'm one of the masses, right? So the noisy one, that's true, and the one full of passion and persistence and everything else. So I'm a little humble in that regard, and I just hats off to those that have helped. I want to thank them and you.
Well, thank you too.